You're a sadist who feels deeply aroused and connected to your partner through consensual impact play. Your partner isn't opposed to impact play at all. The problem is they're an awesome submissive. They're well-trained, well-behaved, and show great devotion toward you as their dominant. They rarely do anything to merit punishment, but your palm still craves a collision with their flesh. What do? Well, keep watching because today I'm going to show you 8 different approaches to spanking that do not require overt sadism or elements of punishment. If you're new to this channel, hello and welcome. I'm Ms.Elle and I'm so glad you're here because if you've ever had confusion about how to incorporate impact play into your dynamic with an obedient submissive who doesn't require frequent punishments, this is the video for you. And if you want to take a deep dive into impact play after this video is over, check out my visual implement guide on Patreon. This 8-page PDF includes a dictionary of 20 of the most common types of implements, as well as a visual guide of 25 implements from my personal collection. Just go over to patreon.com/LXerotica to get instant access. All right, so the first point I need to make before jumping into these 8 different types of approaches is do not seriously set up a submissive for failure just so you can have a reason to punish them. I know this can be a tempting way to problem solve, but it's highly unwise for your dynamic sense of safety and level of devotion within your submissive. Now, you can do this in a role play context, and we will talk about that more in a minute. But essentially, we want to prevent the submissive from feeling discouraged, depressed, or ashamed because they're getting the impression that they're constantly failing you. This is why our first approach is within a role play scene. In this context, the submissive knows that this scene has limits and the expectations within the scene do not extend outside of those limits. For instance, you could easily establish a punishment within a boss and secretary role play where the submissive is punished for making the wrong coffee, making mindless administrative mistakes, or just failing to complete tasks on time, whatever you see fit for your role play. But whatever you choose, the submissive knows that these performance expectations won't extend outside of the role play, and thus any failure they experience within the scene will contribute to submissive arousal, not a shame spiral. Similarly, you can use specific points of submissive training to administer consequences and punishment. Now, this is not a role play scene, nor are you as the dominant approaching this through the angle of setting up a submissive to fail as a reason to punish. We're talking real areas of desired behavior modification that if the submissive happens to fall short on, negative consequences are expected. For example, let's say the submissive has asked the dominant for help waking up at 6 o'clock every morning so that they can have a full and productive day. The dominant then establishes this as a rule that the submissive must follow within the daily ritual where they must also send a nude photo and a worshipful text within 10 minutes of waking. Now, the submissive is consistent for 2 weeks straight. Well done. The submissive is even consistent on the 3rd week, the next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday morning. But unfortunately, the submissive chose to stay up until 2 o'clock on Thursday morning, binging Netflix, and sleeps until 10:30 that morning. Now, the submissive was not set up for failure. The dominant was not looking for an opportunity to punish. The submissive made an irresponsible choice and failed to wisely manage their time. Then the submissive chose to obey their feelings over their dominant by staying in bed and sleeping instead of obeying the rule established by the accountability they requested of their dominant. It's simple cause and effect, not manipulation. But if you are a highly sadistic dominant, an ideal option with a masochistic submissive would be to use them as a human whipping post to release stress or frustration. Now, essentially, the submissive would be providing an act of service being used in this way. That's the approach, especially if the dominant could emotionally benefit from a cathartic release on the top side in this type of play. Another slightly less sadistic option is to approach a spanking scene with the intent of building up the submissive's tolerance so you can deepen your impact play as a couple over time. Now, this differs slightly from maintenance spankings, where the dominant administers regular spankings to keep the submissive's behavior docile and compliant, but both can be very effective approaches. But a far more playful way to express some sadistic desires would be to use your submissive to try out a new toy or set of implements, and this does not have to be done with any real aggression, okay? Let's say you buy a new toy that you're excited about. Show your submissive that excitement and begin setting a playful mood throughout the day with some flirty texts about how they need to come straight home because you got a new toy you can't wait to try out on them. Things like that. And even though this is more of a lighthearted option, this level of playfulness that I'm talking about often fosters great emotional openness between partners that often very quickly turns very steamy and intense. You can also approach impact play with a more sensory focus, where you use a variety of floggers and other implements and incorporate other desired sensory items like feathers or pinwheels for an erotic and immersive scene. Take your time creating a variety of sensations across your partner's body and use any spanking or impact play as an element of the sensory play. Watch how your submissive responds to the different implements and the different sensations they give. Discover the various marks left behind from each. Toggle between light and pleasurable sensations, even ticklish sensations, to deep thuds and sharp stings. And when you've had your fill, continue the sensory play and finish up by soothing your partner's throbbing skin with some ice play. Jumping back into more sadistic territory, approaching impact play through the lens of ownership can be deeply erotic for both dominant and submissive. Essentially, the message the dominant sends through their energy and actions is, I love you so much, I just want to cover you in my marks. I want everyone to see that you're mine. And this can be an effortless lead into ravishment play if that's your thing. But the key to this approach is to balance savagery with tenderness. So, leave those marks, but be soft with the emotions and affectionate with the body between strikes. The submissive should be caught in this emotional bliss of feeling so powerless beneath your hand, yet so protected by those hands simultaneously. And finally, if you consider yourself less sadist and more soft dom, you can look at this as an act of care toward your submissive. How can impact play be an act of care? Release. All right. One type of spanking I discuss in my other spanking videos, which I've linked in this video's description, is cathartic spankings, which essentially serves as an intense emotional release for the submissive. They're free to yell, scream, cry, laugh. They're free to just express whatever trapped emotions need to surface. This is the perfect time for an over-the-knee spanking, followed by a long period of affection and aftercare as the submissive cries and talks and processes their emotions in your arms. So I hope this helped you map out alternative routes that will lead you and your partner to mutually satisfying impact play. Which one of these strategies sound most appealing to you? Comment below and let me know. And again, to access my visual implement guide, just go over to patreon.com/lxerotica to get instant access.